Hey everybody, Jesse Slaughter with the Pursuit Podcast, and today's guest is Rick Tryon, our city commissioner. Super excited to have him on. He's often viewed as kind of an outspoken individual, often using social media as a way to communicate. However, as you'll see here in this episode, he's a very sincere human being who cares deeply about this community, very deeply. Whether you agree with everything that Rick says or not, one thing you can't deny is that he truly cares about our community. I was very excited for this interview. I thought he did a fantastic job, and stand by.
69-foot pursuit. Stop! Sir, stop!
Welcome, Rick.
Hey, nice to be here, Jesse.
What'd you think of that intro?
I love it. I thought you were going to do Bad Boys or something in there. That would be good, too.
I think that crossed our mind.
Yeah, right. I'll bet.
No, I think it did. No, that's actually one of our deputies actually in a foot pursuit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's awesome,
so it's
man. That's good.
That's the cool part.
I love it.
Very, very legit.
And where's the background music? Sounds like some
That's our guy behind the
Okay,
mic over there,
all
Ben. Ben Broughton did all that. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we get actual live musicians
That's
doing the
awesome,
music.
man.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, we're super lucky. We've got a great team.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking right before we started,
Right.
kind of like what was going on with this whole thing and how it all started. And it was really cool because, like I told you, we were, the Sheriff's Legacy Foundation needs to raise money for the foundation. But, we thought about doing a gala, but the police department already does that.
Right.
Everybody gets fundraisered out. I do. And here's the problem though. They're all good causes. Like every single one of them is worthy for you to go and spend your money. But I was like, I kind of felt bad. I was like, gosh, are we going to be those people that make people go to another fundraiser? We had thought about everything. Like at one point we were like, we should do horse races,
Oh,
something cool like that. But
Right.
you're starting big money to do that type of stuff.
right.
So we started talking about doing a podcast to raise money for the foundation, and the foundation jumped on board. We've got a ton of advertising, which you'll hear during the ads, of local, like a lot of mostly mom and pop shops
Sure.
that are here.
Right.
I think Builder's First Source is probably the
Okay.
biggest company, but I mean they're still local to us. And then we thought, okay, we're going to do public education. You have to be a local Cascade County personality. You don't have to be in politics, and we try not to make it political. I mean, obviously, politics isn't everything,
Sure.
but we're trying to learn about people.
Yep.
Or your political nexus has an effect on us.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
we've had different people. Now, one thing we're doing, so like you're on because you just won your seat.
Right.
So if you were in your political season, I wouldn't invite you. So like from
Right.
January till the time you win
Sure.
your election, because we just don't, and you would never do this actually, because I know you, but a lot of people would soundbite us to death,
Right.
But all the money from the advertising goes to help kind of fund the staff that runs this, but most of it, like 90% of it, all goes to, well, actually 95% all goes to the foundation. And then the monetization, as that builds up, that will go to fund the project,
Right.
but then the rest all goes to that. But yeah, it's awesome. So it's a 100% fundraiser
Right.
for our foundation.
And it was like I was saying, when I first came in, I'm really impressed that you're doing this right, doing it the right way, because there's, anybody can say, I'm a podcaster, or
Right.
I do a podcast, and they just kind of throw something together and, get a little, Shure SM57 mic or something and plug it into their audio program on their computer and tape it and say, well, yeah, record it and say I'm doing a podcast. But you're doing this right, and that makes all the difference. You've got top-notch equipment, good stuff, and I noticed that you're out there, where you should be on people subscribing to the podcast. What are some of the things that you can subscribe to the podcast? Some of the different, online podcast providers.
So probably YouTube's the most obvious for most people because it's been around the longest, but then Spotify, which is kind of the new podcast hotness of stuff. But then we're on Rumble, X, and I'm trying to remember. There's another one I can't think of right off the top of my head.
Can you subscribe on iTunes?
I can't remember if we've got on there or not. I think we're going to.
Right.
Part of it's a slow build out to.
Sure.
But I want to say, Kristen McComb is she's actually the foundation's contract internet person, and I think we're going to get there if we're not there already. But yeah.
Do you have an audio only version as well, or are you?
I don't think
totally,
so. I think we're going totally video.
Okay.
It was kind of important to me that people saw the characters of our community.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of nonverbal.
Yeah.
That happens.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, we've had multiple guests on. I mean, they laugh. Some of them cry.
Sure.
You know, you get to, you know how it is. People can say something, and then do they really mean what they say? Well, the nonverbal will tell you.
Right.
And I think that's important because it's about transparency for our community.
Yeah.
So
That's
I like
awesome.
it. I like
That's
it being
really good.
videoed to make it
That's good.
come to life.
That's awesome.
You know? I mean, I tell everybody the only rule we have is I'm accountable for what I say, and you're accountable for what you say,
Right.
and that's the only rule that we have. You know, if people slip out a curse word or whatever, we're not here to impede on people's First Amendment rights. I did say a curse word that I bleeped out the other day because it's one of those curse words I don't normally say, but I was saying in a quote.
Okay. You normally say curse words? I mean,
I'm careful. I'm careful. I'm not I mean, don't get me wrong. There's, you know, on the gun range talk or something like that. And then there, you know, but I try not to do it.
Watching football game talk.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Especially if like you're a Raiders fan. I mean, 4-letter words just becomes part of your vernacular.
Exactly.
You know, because it's just terrible to watch.
I know it's been, but they're a little better this last week. They were a little They got some new people.
This last week. Exactly. So the whole point of the Pursuit podcast, which I'm sure you've know because I know you've watched, is I feel like we have a tremendously strong community.
Yep.
But I'm so tired of the division. I'm so tired of it. And I think one of the big reasons we get division is people just soundbite their way through things. They're not really transparent at what they say.
Right.
And I don't mean just politicians. I mean leaders, business owners, whatever, because there's all this political garbage out there that people are wading through. And this is a format where people really get to know people.
Right.
And I'm super excited you came on.
Yeah.
You just won very handedly your race for city commission again.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. But I mean, you did very well. And so first of all, congratulations.
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're excited to serve, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. You know, I
tell.
just finished the first 4 years and the first term, 4 years, and we're going to head into this next term, and there's lots to do, and there's lots of things, as you know, coming up. So I'm excited about it.
Good.
I'm excited about a couple of the new folks that are going to be on the commission. And so we're looking forward to it. I'm sure you'll have or have already had some of those folks on your podcast here.
Actually, you're my first. You're my first city commissioner.
Okay.
On here. I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I have two more scheduled. I have Corey and Shannon scheduled.
Good.
They're going to come on.
Awesome.
And then I definitely want to get Susan and Joe on too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're just such cool people and key players.
They are.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a lot more here in a second. But what
Yeah.
I really want to pivot to is I want to know about you. Where'd you grow up?
Yep. I grew up here in Great Falls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And many, many years ago, I was born in Forsyth, Montana, but my dad was a oil field engineer.
Right.
He moved around a lot. So I spent, my pre-kindergarten years in Texas, Oklahoma, and then moved here and was raised here, went to school here and raised here. And this is what raised my own kids here. I have two daughters, raised them here and then helped starting at least to raise two of my 5 grandchildren here in Great Falls. So,
Awesome.
yeah, this is my.
I think I met one of your daughters in the spring when I was out campaigning, and I ran in front of your house. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think you. Yeah, that was Milena, my lawyer daughter. So
She's a lawyer?
She's a lawyer. She's
my
a
gosh.
real good lawyer.
Really? Where does she live?
She lives in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Oh.
She
wow.
lived in Bozeman for 3 years, and which was really nice because you got to go down and see the grandkids a little easier to go and visit with them, her and her husband. And
Fort
my
Collins,
grandkids.
Though, is beautiful.
It's a really nice
my
place.
gosh.
Yeah, it's one of those boom areas as well
yeah.
too now, and I think, it's one of those places people escape to from other places. So,
It is. It's. I remember I went there a few years ago, and my wife and I were walking around downtown. And my wife and I are kind of foodies.
Oh,
We like to
okay.
go have all the fancy appetizers and a good drink or
Sure.
something and walk around. Oh man,
Yeah.
we went to Fort Collins and it was like we could have stayed there for weeks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's cool.
Talking about
'cause-
foodies, and in Great Falls, I was actually my mother owned the Jack Club.
Okay.
For several years, and so I was involved in helping run that and managing that when she owned it. You were talking about foodies.
Yeah.
That's got some of the old original Great Falls spaghetti sauce and raviolis, and so that's kind of a legacy Great Falls place. And I was involved in that. And I've been around Great Falls for quite a while and played music here a lot, and with various combos and by myself now mostly. So Great Falls is my hometown. And
So, what was your mom's name?
Connie Tryon.
Connie. And so talk to me about like what side of town did you grow up in?
I grew up on the lower south side of town,
Okay.
and then I also grew up. I went to Longfellow.
All right.
Yeah, back
Before it was fancy.
Back before it was it was really Longfellow. But yeah, it's lower south side, and then River Road. We grew up down on part of my growing up years were on River Road, Lower River Road, and then when I was probably 12 years old or so, we moved to the east side of town. So I've been all around town.
So you were at Great Falls High?
Yeah, I was at Great Falls High.
Graduate?
Yeah,
Awesome.
75. And,
Awesome.
East Junior High, and so.
What did you do in school? What were your passions like when you were a grade school, high school kid?
Well, we won't get into what my passions were when I was in high school. I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid.
Oh, you broke the occasional law or two.
Yeah, and had some some definite issues back in the day. But this was so long ago that I've overcome. I used up all my coupons for all of that stuff a long time ago.
Then again, you probably can also argue that by today's standards, they'd just be like, "Oh, that's just a kid."
Yeah, it's pretty calm by today's standards. Yeah, no doubt about it. Talking with some of the school resource officers here recently, it's pretty calm by what's going on today.
Oh, for sure. So, so talk to me about growing up here. Was Great Falls kind of still smelter booming when you were growing up in school?
When I grew up, I remember, Great Falls sort of during the mid 60s to probably mid 70s. There was a 10 or 15 year period where Great Falls was the place. I mean, it was the boom town. It was the happening place in Montana. There was a period of time there in the 60s that Great Falls was the biggest town in Montana. We're third now, I think.
Second or third, yeah.
So Billings, Missoula, and Great Falls, I think that's what
so.
it was. But there was a time when, Great Falls was the place in Montana. It was the happening, bustling city in Montana. And that's the period that I grew up here. And then about 1980, when it started kind of falling off, right at the end of the 70s, up into 1980, 81 in there. Anaconda had closed down. We started to really go through some really hard times. There was national problems as well. But it really hit us hard here because of the Anaconda Company being sort of the primary, outside of the base, the primary economic driver for Great Falls and Cascade County, and that fell off, and we just kind of lost our way there. And there were some changes at Malmstrom Air Force Base as well coming along after that. And so yeah, but I remember growing up in Great Falls, man. It was different back then. It was just a different place.
Yeah, it's got such an amazing history.
It does.
And I don't think people understand, because I still remember, even in the 90s when I went to school in Bozeman, I remember Great Falls was a huge deal. Huge. Like, all the top athletes were from Great Falls High and CMR, all
Right.
of them. And they were always, it was one of those two teams was competing for like the football state championship every single year.
Sure.
I mean, they didn't necessarily win it, but they were in the game.
Yep.
And I just remember it and I think that was like that the boom times, those were their children,
Right.
that were growing up here. And it was a rocking, cool place. And it had a great legacy back then. And I remember when I moved here in 2002, and I remember just like at the time I'd moved here, people were kind of like, it's a crackhead town. People were talking down about it. And I remember downtown was really struggling. Like, there were transients everywhere.
Yep.
Businesses were closed down.
Yep.
And it was sad.
Yep.
It was really sad.
Back in the 70s, that decade of the 70s, from probably late 60s all through the decade of the 70s, I remember, Great Falls had a thriving live music scene, a thriving restaurant, nightclub business, atmosphere and culture here. Just a lot of great stuff going on then. And it got depressing in the 80s. And then since then, we've been trying to climb out of that and get back to what I call the new glory days that are coming our way, and they are.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
We're going to talk about the glory days for sure.
Yeah.
The new ones.
The new one, the new glory days that are coming. And that's having that perspective is valuable, even the perspective that you just talked about of what, when I ran for the city commission the first time, I talked a lot about that, about remembering and remembering back when Great Falls was the place, and a lot of people just didn't have that perspective. They came after, or they grew up after that, and not having that perspective. People go, "What? What are you talking about? Has it always been this way?" No, it wasn't always this way, and so you're right. There's quite a history here, and so hopefully we can. And I'm confident we're going to get back to a time when Great Falls will once again be the envy of Montana. I believe we can, and that we will get there.
So my personal feeling is we're 10 years away.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
In 10 years, we'll be there. And the problem with the new Montana, as I call it, which isn't all bad, but the problem is the out-of-staters basically price us out of all of our own homes and own property. And there's a tough equation with that. And the reason is that you have to make the community you live in better. But a byproduct of that is when it gets better, people leave from other states, particularly states that don't have a lot of freedoms, or have too many laws or too many regulations or super high taxes, and they come to what I call free America. So I think that's a complex thing. One of the things you hit on, and I remember when you campaigned your first time, and I remember I was like, I just remember how in tune with your campaign I was, and I was like, he's saying all the right things. And here was why I knew that. Back when I was a young city cop, and I was a downtown officer, I used to learn from like Ike Kaufman and the Thayers, and they used to teach me. I would sit in their businesses because that was my job. I had to build relationships with them. That was my mandate. And I would sit in their offices, and Bob Jones.
Sure.
And I would sit in their offices for hours, and they would tell me about, kids cruising the drag on Central,
God, yeah.
all that stuff, right? And at the time, I'm like, people used to cruise up and down. Said, "There's nobody here," you know, and that's changing now. But back then, there was like nobody there.
Right.
And I remember thinking, "Holy cow!" So I remember I had good mentors that taught me. So when you started talking about that, and you started saying we need to get back to that. Of course, your imagination's way more vivid than what reality.
Right.
In my imagination, I imagined this place was on fire, and so I was like, "This is going to be cool." Yeah, it's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Cruising up and down Central Avenue, I did that. I mean, did you ever see the movie American Graffiti? It kind of captures that cruising the drag vibe, you know. We've always been, of course, that was in the 50s in that movie, but in the 70s, the drag extended from the Civic Center all the way down to what Zandy's, which at the time was Sandy's. There was no Z, it was Sandy.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know
There
that.
was Sandy's Drive-In, and that's where, so you would cruise down there, and then that whole Sandy's Drive-In lot and that whole area around there would be all, you know, we're a car town. This is a car town, always has been, but it was really that back then, motorheads, you know.
Right.
So the whole parking lot and the street would be nothing but guys parked with the hoods open on their car, you know, and so everybody's looking at everybody. I mean, that was real.
Absolutely.
That was just such a piece of Americana, and such a piece of Great Falls, what it was back then. And you know, there was, you know, you brought up the Cruisin the Drag thing, and now I just have such vivid memories.
Nostalgia.
Up and down, you know, and all your friends, and you're leaning out the windows, yelling at your friends as they're going it the other way. And you know, then there was a law passed, no more Cruisin the Drag. And I thought that happened in the early 80s, you know, the city commission, no more Cruisin the Drag, because apparently it kind of got out of hand, you know, and so I would love to see that happen again. I hate to say that, but I would love to see Cruisin the Drag again.
I would too, and I'll tell you, I call that. You know what I call that when government does that? When government goes, okay, so one kid peed in the pool, so everybody's gonna wear diapers, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
right.
that's my rule on that, and it drives me nuts, you know. And so you're telling people that they can't lawfully drive their vehicles up and down a city street, which they pay taxes for, and they register their cars to drive on them, and they can't do that?
Right.
You know, that's some pretty oppressive government.
Yeah,
when that happens.
I don't know that kids would want, you know, I just don't know that when I say kids, I mean, young people want to do that much anymore. Maybe that's lost its appeal, but I know that the city banned it, you know, and it's just like, come on, man, it was such a great Falls thing to do.
Yeah, too bad there wasn't some lawyer who didn't sue over that and say you can't, because I don't think you can do that.
Right. I don't think you can either.
Yeah, I don't think that's lawful.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. No, I think that's a huge part. Do you think 10th Avenue South helped kill that too?
Could be, you know, although 10th Avenue South has always been, you know, the busiest street in Montana. You know, it's always been that. But maybe so. There was a period of time when there was sort of a cruising you know, there was a cruise area, and you're probably aware of this being a police officer.
Oh yeah.
You know, the Target would be one of the places where they would pull over and then drive, you know, and so it was sort of like that, but it wasn't the same thing. It was not Cruisin the Drag.
No, it was mostly airmen.
Right.
In their souped up, I called them Fast and Furious cars.
Right.
And they had the little lights that would illuminate the ground.
Right.
And oh my gosh, and it was a lot of drag racing on 10th, because 10th's pretty wide open, especially if you get far out east.
Yep.
It was a ton of, like, you know, is it 49th? Is that by 4Bs? Or is that Harley? Yeah. 49th there. They would head out of town and they'd stop at the 49th light and they'd drag race out. It's just nonstop. Yeah, it was crazy.
They're doing that in town now on like First Avenue North. Because I live down there, and it's just there's no light between 26th Street and all the way up to 36th or 38th. So it's like it's a drag strip for a lot of these airmen kids, you know. So.
Well, and the problem with it, especially on that street, is that's a suburban street. So if somebody steps out behind a
Yeah,
car.
it's kid, and there's
yeah.
kids around there. It's just not good.
Not that racing's good at all.
No.
We shouldn't condone that, but
No.
so talk to me about, so you graduate from high school. Are you into music at this time?
I've been into music since I was in like 10, 12 years old.
Awesome. What got you into music?
I think it was just the the culture of the time in the 60s. I got into music in like late 60s. So it was, everybody was, it was cool. And I played saxophone in grade school. And then I got a band together when I was a kid with a couple of buddies down the street, and I played saxophone. Then I moved over to guitar. I'm talking, we're kids.
Right.
But I just got into it, got into playing guitar and learning how to play guitar. I'm into the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all that at the time, and they were the big thing at the time.
yeah.
Still big to me now.
Me
but,
too.
Yeah, so I still love.
I love their music to this day.
Yeah, and so just did that, and it sort of kind of progressed from there, and got into Bob Dylan and started playing acoustic guitar and writing my own songs and stuff like that. But that it's more of a hobby to me. It always has been. I've been able to make some money at doing it and write some songs and stuff like that. But it's a hobby, and it's something, I believe that really, to have a full life, you should have more than one or two things that you engage yourself in.
Right.
And there's people that think differently, that think you need to just focus on one thing and be the best in the world at it. I don't believe that. I believe that, you should have several interests and several things that you pursue, and that you either God has called you to do, or that you decide on your own, or things that will help you live a fulfilled life. For me, music was one of those things. Community service is another. Again, I love studying the Bible. That's another thing. I love to do that, and that's something that I invest a lot of my time into. So
That's awesome. So talk to me about this. I'm super curious. Was the Ozark Club around when you were a kid?
the Ozark Club, no, it wasn't.
Was it closed down by then?
Yeah, it was closed down by then. That was pre-Rick Tryon.
I've heard some crazy stories about that place. I've heard some crazy stories.
Well,
Yeah.
the 3D, Black Eagle was a huge night
Nightclub.
scene back,
Yeah.
and that was a little before I came along. But back late 50s and stuff, that was huge.
Oh yeah.
Dinner, dancing, and dining was what the 3D was. And
Absolutely.
there were several places in Black Eagle that, because of Anaconda, that were just hot spots. They were nightclub hot spots. a lot of stuff going on.
Do you remember the Town Tavern?
Yeah.
So that's where the Ozark Club used to be, and then it became
Right.
the Town Tavern. But I don't know, sometime probably in your lifetime growing up here. I
Right.
don't remember when. And that used to be the biggest Donnybrook fighting
Yep.
bar ever.
Right. And then it became the biggest Donnybrook bar was the Maverick downtown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And which was another one of those episodes that, we'll get into that some other time.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So what was your, where'd you work? What'd you do when you were a kid? Did you have work odd jobs? Did you do stuff? Or?
When I was a kid, I mostly hung out and at bars when I was as I started getting into high school and above,
Okay.
and doing that, playing music quite a bit. And, I eventually took off and went traveling around the country when I was 18, 19 years old. I worked at Boulder River School and Hospital, which was
What was it called?
It's called Boulder River School and Hospital in
Okay.
Boulder. I went over there and moved
Oh, in
there.
Boulder.
Yeah.
Okay.
I spent a couple of years in Helena working. I worked for United Parcel Service in Helena.
Was that a psychiatric hospital?
It was what they called at the time. It was the school for mentally retarded folks.
Okay.
But
Right.
I don't know what the term now is.
I went on a tour of that when I was in high school, not too long before it closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I worked there for a while, and then I worked in Helena for United Parcel Service. And then I went down to Nashville, Tennessee, and spent some time down there, and kind of traveled around a little bit around down south. Lived in Alabama for a bit before I eventually just decided I'm coming back to Great Falls, and moved back here. And like I said, I managed the Jack Club for a number of years here. Worked for Nichols Music here in town for a while when they were open. I did a lot of that. And for the last, starting in about 1999, I went through a whole period of time where I just did various things and worked on my own, did my own consulting business and stuff. And then 1999, I started working part-time in Black Eagle for Phil Facenda at Stray Moose Productions as a video transfer specialist, and managed their computer network for him up there. So,
what is a video transfer?
Well, if you have a VCR, like a VHS, that you want to get transferred over to a digital, to a DVD, that's what part of what they do up there. Okay. And part of what I sort of one of the things I did voiceovers for them, and did for probably 15 years they were doing what North Country Media here does now, which is and they still do this to some degree, but the whole industry has changed. Customizing 1-800 numbers on, Pope Hill's Amazing Pocket Fisherman, and those kind of things that they sell products on TV. For a long time, that was a hot industry.
Oh, yeah.
And so Great Falls was sort of the place where it was North Country Media, Stray Moose Productions. Right here in Great Falls, it was Stray Mooses in Black Eagle, but this was like one of the only places in the country where these marketing companies would send their videos of these products, and then North Country and Stray Moose would customize the 1-800 numbers on them, because the different 1-800 numbers was how they would tell how they would do some of their marketing, and statistical information of where which TV stations were getting the orders for these products, so that they could kick back some of the money. It's sort of a convoluted way they did it, but
this is before Facebook.
This was before, this was before Facebook and before a lot of that. So it was mostly television marketing and customizing these things. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds in different formats, VHS, beta, and now it's all gone digital. So you don't need the rows and rows of tape. We were doing 1-inch, the big 1-inch tape machines, and cutting tape still at the time, and those days are long gone. So now it's all digital.
That's awesome.
But they still do a little of that up there.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's always a retro somebody, right?
Right.
Like I was in what store was I in? I can't remember now. One of the big department stores, and they're selling, vinyl record players and vinyl records now.
Vinyl's coming back.
And you can just go, and it was like, holy cow. Because remember, for a while, you could get vinyl, but you couldn't get the players. But now they're making them again.
Yeah, they're making them again, yeah. I've still got some pretty good vinyl.
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's super neat. Yeah, so I imagine it'll all come back. So how long did you do that gig?
I still work part-time for him on a really, really temporary part-time basis. I still work for Stray Moose.
Nice.
So, but I did that for, 21 years or so.
So does that lead you into like the whole E-City Beat thing? Is that how you kind of go into?
The E-City Beat, what I do for them is I'm just a contributor.
Right.
I write articles for them once in a while, as do other people here around town. And it's all kind of a free gig, it's all volunteer.
Yeah. Do you enjoy that?
I love that. For years, for about a year and a half, I was a paid columnist for the Great Falls Tribune as well.
Oh, okay.
And I wrote an opinion column for them once a month. But that was a paid gig, and I really enjoyed doing that. For the E-City Beat, this is, blogging, there's no money in blogging.
Right.
Right? Everybody thinks they're going to go start a blog and make a bunch of money. There's no money in that.
Right.
And so what I do for them is I just occasionally will write a little piece, and just that's my way of contributing a little bit of my thought processes to they're local. They're local. They're not, they don't have any reach beyond a few people in Great Falls. So yeah, I like doing that. And
That's
I,
awesome.
I do that. I actually have probably more reach on my own personal Facebook page than than eCity Beat does. And so most of what I contribute voluntarily for eCity Beat is just stuff that I usually put on my own Facebook page first.
Right.
And then there's maybe have a little different audience there. But
So one of the things that's funny about you is because we talk now and then and cross paths and have conversations, and I've always thought this is kind of ironic about you is you don't really care for social media. Like we've had conversations about it.
Right.
But yet you seem to be able to use it as a very, very powerful tool to communicate.
Social media is a very powerful tool to communicate. And if you do it right, it can be effective. I mean, if you do it the right way, it can be very effective in communicating, especially. And one thing I learned was that it can be very effective locally.
Right.
And if you have a group of local friends that will, friends and followers that that like interesting and different and varied content, they will always come back and read what you have to say. It's more than just showing pictures of your dinner, which a lot of people seem to think the purpose of Facebook is. Yeah. And I mean, that's okay. I'm not criticizing anybody for doing that.
Right.
That's okay to do that, but you're just not going to get a lot of people that they're going to come back and see what you had for dinner last night every day. So interesting and varied content that focuses on local issues, I think, is sort of the sweet spot for, social media. I do a little bit of Twitter, not much, mostly Facebook. And I try to make whatever I say on Facebook, I try to make sure it's relevant, humorous. I do music, humor, and then local interest issues, and that seems to be sort of the sweet spot for me anyway for using social media.
One of the interesting things that I always find about your social media stuff is you write. I mean, a lot of people will make their content through a meme with a little bit of verbiage, or it's a description of a picture to describe an event. I think that's more like I'm more video oriented. Like if I'm going to get on social media, I'm just going to talk to people.
Sure.
That's my strength.
Right.
What I find fascinating about you is that you'll write quite a bit of content.
Right.
And I'll read your stuff and I can tell that the people read it. And in this world of scrolling and instant, you have this knack to get people to actually read what you say. And that's extremely rare.
Yeah.
It's extremely rare.
Well, I think a mistake a lot of people make in writing, especially on social media, is they don't break up their content, man. Right. They just write one big long paragraph that just goes for, forever. Yeah. And they don't break it up. It's really a simple rule I follow is if you're going to write something that's more than, 4 or 5 sentences, you got to break it up into 4 or 5 sentences with spaces in between. Otherwise, people, I'm not going to read that. I mean, if I see something that is, paragraph after paragraph that's not broken up into little chunks that could stand on their own, maybe, alone even,
right.
I'm just not going to read it.
I always think when I see those, it's one of those things where they're like, "You need to like and share this." Those. If you agree, you need to like and share. And so every time I see that, I'm like, "Oh gosh, I'm gonna get bait into that again."
Right.
So I just cruise on. But no, it's interesting. We talked. A long time ago. It was probably 5 years ago. We went to, I believe it was Vaster Bassett then. And I met with you when I was first running for sheriff.
Right. No, exactly right.
And we talked, and you weren't in office yet. I think you had run, but you hadn't won.
I had, yeah, that's right.
And then you ran again and won.
Yep.
And one of the things that you said to me that I'd I never forgot. And it was really good political advice. Was you said to me this, you said, you have to keep your energy. If you don't keep your energy about what you're doing, then get out.
Right.
And I was like, okay, and you were the only person that really said that to me. But you told me, you were like, hey, be high energy, stay high energy, and keep it going. And I was like, okay. And I looked back after you said that, and I looked at a lot of people who get involved in serving their community, and they get in the position, and they're like, I've arrived. And
Right.
they just coast along.
Yeah.
And they exist in their
Right.
position. They're not really, I mean, they go to all the appropriate meetings.
Right.
They're there. I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they don't punch the clock and do
Right.
their time. But that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I got out of it like, okay, you're not here to just exist.
Right.
You're here to maintain that energy.
Yeah. You never arrive.
Yeah.
You've never arrived.
Exactly.
You've
Exactly.
never arrived. So.
Every day we pay rent. Right.
Right. Exactly. And that's exactly right. And
Awesome.
there's always something, new, and you're doing a great job as sheriff, and everybody loves you. You know that, right? I mean, really. I mean, maybe not everybody, but I mean, you're a very, very well liked and loved sheriff for Cascade County, and because you've kept that energy, because you continually try to improve and do more, and keep moving. You keep moving, and you keep you're up with things, and people really appreciate that, and people really like that about you. I love your content. We talked about content on social media. What you do on social media is really important, and it's very effective in communicating to the community. Your Facebook Live stuff, just everything you do on social media, I think you could give a master class in it, because it's how it should be done.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really do. I honestly, though, I think I learned from people. I learned from watching you. I'll tell you a quick story. It's funny. So here's a real story of why I met with you when I ran last time. This is a true story. So I'm watching everybody, right? Because you know how it is. You're engaged a little bit in social media when you have it for fun. When you get into politics, you really start reading over content,
Right? No,
because you're going to learn things about your community, get a feel for what's going
Right.
on, and so I'm reading your stuff, and I remember it's 2018, and you were fired up. There was a lot of hot button issues that year, and you were on there and you were posting, and I told Corey Reeves at the time, I said, we need to go meet with Rick. And he goes, oh, okay, why? And I said, I can just tell that Rick has a really good pulse on what's going on in this community. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. And I'm like, no, we need to go. I said, and here's the other thing we need to do. I have a feeling, and I just had this feeling. I was like, if we sit down and we talk to him about what we're going to do, he's going to get it. He's going to be like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think this is a guy that we could win over. And it was like, let's go have coffee with this guy. And so we scheduled a meeting with him. And I remember in my mind, I was like, well, you know how you always joke and you always say, get off my lawn?
Right,
you know, your little tagline?
Right.
I remember thinking, I'm like, so I had you mispegged a little bit, because I told him, I said, he's going to be that guy that we're going to need to give constant attention to. He's going to be bugging us about stuff all the time. But if we, get in with him, we'll be okay. So we sit down, we have coffee with you. And then it was funny because I was waiting for the other shooter. I mean, we talk, you call me, we discuss issues and things about how we make our community better, but you don't bug me and blow my phone up. But I was like, oh gosh, he could be that guy. And so we met, and it was good. And I just think it was funny, your forethoughts and your afterthoughts when you meet people.
No, I remember meeting with you and Corey. I remember it very clearly. And I was just impressed that you would do that, that you would say that you would go meet with somebody who, has been around. I mean, Corey's been around and you've been around, but, I'm a little older, I guess, than you guys. And I was really impressed that you would want to come and meet with somebody, and that, you know, I was basically a nobody at the time. I'm still a nobody as far as that goes, but to come and not, you know, I wasn't on the city commission. I had run for the city commission. I had run for county commission. I had run for the legislature, lost every single one of those races. And so why you would want to come and talk to somebody who had been a perennial, you know, political loser, and talk about it. I was just impressed that you would do that. But I did at that time. I really sensed that Great Falls was at an inflection point, and that there was a change coming, and that the natives were restless, and I mean really restless. And they were, and they still are. But I was impressed that you were willing to go and to try to tap into some of that, maybe get somebody else a different perspective from somebody else for your own race, which, you know, that first race you and Corey did was, again, just a masterclass. You guys knocked it out of the park. And what you did should be a template for anybody that wants to run at a county level. They should go back and look at what you guys did. It was really well done.
And the sad part about the whole thing is we had no idea what we were doing.
Right.
It was all grit. It was just pure 110% grit.
Right.
You know, and I remember I think we were one of the first campaigns. I don't know, I shouldn't say that. I've seen other people do it, but we were the first one to really do the farmer's market. Like really do a big deal out of it. And I'll never forget, I would be there at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, because then I got to pick where I could set up. I got like, you know, I got to pick.
Right.
And I remember it was just like I was just so dying exhausted. Right. I mean, I was working 60 hours plus a week at the police department, plus I was campaigning. It was just exhausting. But I remember every day that I'd sit there in the dark for 2.5, 3 hours before they'd open, and my opponent wouldn't be there. Right. I just remember thinking, I'm like, this is the difference. Yep. This is the difference right here. Right.
The other difference that I saw in that campaign was the youth. I don't. When I say youth, I mean comparatively.
Right.
You know, Great Falls has sort of been a good old boys, you know, and I don't mean that in the term that
no, it 100% was. 100% was.
Right. And so to get some young, new, fresh ideas like you and Corey really, really did that. I mean, you really portrayed that. And this is young and new people coming into what had typically been just a, you know, it's almost, I hate to say it, but that was almost like the old, you know, good old boys down south sheriff, you know, the sheriff's office up there. It was almost like that. And it had sort of gained this reputation of its, you know, these, what was the sheriff's name in the TV show? I forget the TV show with the guy, Dukes of Hazzard. What was that guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was almost
Roscoe
like
Pico Train.
Right. It was almost like that. I mean, I'm not saying that they behaved like that. I'm saying the perception of it was like that, as it had been for a couple of the different county offices. So to see a young go-getters like you, Corey, come in was just a breath of fresh air.
Well, it's funny you should mention when you said the term "good old boys," and you said that, I actually used that during my campaign,
right?
And I stole it off. I stole it off your Facebook thing because you would say that all the time.
Yeah, and I still say it.
You do, but you didn't. But in 2018, you said it a lot.
Right,
like,
I did
because it was really bad on the city commission, on the county commission, on everywhere. Right. Everywhere you looked in government, it was these. I'm here because I existed long enough.
Right.
And it was my turn.
My turn. That's exactly
And the Democrat Party or Republican Party decided I'm up.
Right.
You know, it kind of is reminiscent of judges, right? A lot of people don't know this, but there's like, if you're a trial lawyer and you decide you want to go be a judge, all the trial lawyers come to you and say, hey, we'll all back you and support you. If you want to be the judge, we'll just fund you into your position.
Right.
And that's how it works.
Right.
And it's a good old boy system, basically, of judges. And it's terrible. And it's frustrating. But there's a lot of that. And I've seen that for years, too. Yep. So I want to touch on something because I wanted to say that took a lot of courage for you to say that and to keep saying that. And here's what a lot of people don't understand about you, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're not saying that as a derogatory Roscoe P. Coltrane adjective. What you're saying is this: good old boys lack transparency.
Yep.
Good old boys lack effort and energy to do the job, and that's what you want to see. And it's interesting because, you know, you've done an amazing job of bringing the energy, of bringing the voice of. You're really good at bringing the voice of opposition without being oppositionally defiant.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, hey, should we think about this? Like, you're really good at that.
Right. Yep.
But that's your way to make sure that system doesn't stay in place.
Right. And you've probably seen this as well. The challenge that you have when you're in a position like sheriff or city commissioner or a county commissioner, the challenge is it's so easy to sometimes get into and become a part of that system. It's so easy to go, well, and I've seen this. I've seen this over the years, and I have to constantly guard against it myself. It is easy to go, well, I'm here now to represent the city instead of I'm here now to represent the people. I'm not here to represent the city. I'm here to represent the people.
Amen.
And it's easy to lose sight of that, and you have to stay. I have to stay on guard on that all the time, and it doesn't mean that you don't sometimes, and maybe even in some cases, a lot of times, at some times, have to go, look, you know, I've got a little bit of an inside view on what's going on here, and so I know a little bit about what is best for the people. May look like it is that you're representing the city or the city administration or the city manager, in my case with the city commission, but really you've got a little bit more perspective on really what is best for the whole community. And it may appear to be that you're representing, that you're actually sort of doing what I railed against back then, which was this good old boys system and this good old boys and gals system, because, you know, there's just as many gals involved in the good old boys system as boys. But so keeping that perspective, that I always have to remind myself, I am not here to represent Greg Doyen and I love Greg, but I'm not here to represent him, his interests, or the city staff's interests, or any of those before I represent the voters and the citizens of Great Falls that asked me to take that seat for their benefit.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Right.
We're going to go further into this because this is where the conversation gets good, but we're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
Your health journey is as unique as you are. The Peak Great Falls has everything you need for your fitness journey. They are your partner in wellness with a top-notch facility, an expert staff, and a very welcoming vibe. Locally owned, community-driven. Join them today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, one cup and one bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. If you love a farm-to-table experience as much as I do, then you have to go to the Roadhouse Diner. The local McCafferty Ranch beef served on every burger. Try my personal favorite, Death by Bacon, today. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems of Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems of Montana today. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community, and obviously they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today. I gotta give a shout out to our supporters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without all those people, we would not have all this. So
good
thank
stuff.
them.
Good
So,
stuff.
you're very vocal. You're very, very outspoken. And there's something I want to talk about because
Sure.
I have a little bit of regret that we didn't make a bigger stand on this. It just frustrated me. But so do you remember the what was it called? The task force we did in 2019.
The crime task force.
Crime task
Sure,
force.
yeah.
And that was interesting. And one of the frustrating things that there was so much politics involved in that.
Yep.
And it really frustrated me. I think if we would have had that after COVID, it would have been a lot more raw than it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Now, when I say that, by all means, Rick, I don't mean you weren't raw and you weren't real, because you were. You were great. You were very raw and real about it. Yeah. It just that was frustrating to me. I was honored to be a part of it. I was happy to be a part of it. I invested a ton of energy and effort into it.
I know you did.
But it frustrated me to no end. And one of the things that I want to talk about that frustrated me is there was an idea proposed that we bus out people who are transient, who are causing problems in our community. And I just remember like a bunch of people sent in, correspondence saying that we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't have talked about it, that we were evil.
Right.
For discussing it.
Right.
And I think it was you and I who really kind of pushed the envelope on the issue. And I don't think people understood our intent.
Right.
And the intent was very, very compassionate.
Yep.
And that always would frustrate me, and I wanted to give you a chance to comment on that.
No, I still think it's a good idea. I still think that, if there's somebody that's a vagrant or somebody who's wandering around Great Falls that doesn't do anything for anybody, doesn't have a job, doesn't care, causing problems, I think they should have the opportunity to get a free bus ticket to go somewhere else where it's warm, especially coming up now. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's not like you're telling them they have to. It's like you're saying, here, why don't you go somewhere where it's going to be warm and where you might find more opportunity? Here's the one-way bus ticket. I still think that's a great idea. And there are people and there were people then during the crime task force who felt that it was more important to virtue signal than it was to actually solve some of the problems we have here. It was more important to make everybody look at them and say how wonderful and moral they are, because they won't think outside the box a little bit, and than it was to actually solve some of the problems we have here. If you're more interested in virtue signaling and being the big moral arbiter of everybody else than you are in solving the actual issues and problems we have here, then I have no use for it. I just don't have any use for you.
Yeah, and here's the part that I was frustrated about that is, like, I think people looked at it like, we were gonna, Nazi Germany style,
Right.
round them up and put them on a bus.
Right.
And here's the reality of what. And I was proud of you because I think you understood the reality of what we were really talking about.
Right.
And one of the reasons I was so passionate about it is for years, my wife, my kids, and I volunteered at the rescue mission. We did it for years, and we worked in the soup kitchen and we served meals. And these poor lost souls would come in there and eat, and a lot of them were from out of state, and they were here because, they followed a significant other. They, were running from something in their life, maybe, addiction, whatever brought them here. And now they were stuck here because they don't have the economic means to leave. And here's the thing, and I know you've done this too. I would sit down and talk to them.
Yep.
My wife and I would literally grab some food after they were served, of course, and sit down and have a conversation with them. And it was astounding. It was over half weren't even from here and didn't want to be here. They were stuck here.
Right.
And then they would go in and out of the jail repeatedly. And you're going, why? I mean, the amount it cost us something like $93 a day. No, it's more than that, actually. I think it's $115 a day to house an inmate.
Right.
So it doesn't cost that much for a bus ticket to whatever destination almost you want to go. And I was like, why aren't we just being compassionate by saying, hey, I caught you for disorderly conduct. You're going to go to jail. Well, I just really want to get out of town. Okay. If I buy you a bus ticket, will you go?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Hey, where do you want to go?
Exactly. And I looked at it as a common sense solution where we financially take care of our, we weren't trying to say like, okay, you're Rick Tryon's, kid and you're homeless. Well, hey, you want to go to San Francisco? That wasn't,
Right.
But
No,
we
right.
never even got a chance to explore it.
No, I know. Before the virtue signaling started and everybody started, like you say, launching attacks on you and because I remember you were very vocal about it. I was very vocal about it. Why not? I mean, this is a crime. The crime task force. We're looking for solutions here, and this is a possible solution to some of the issues here. Why do we have to stop? Stomp on this? And you're exactly right. It wasn't about let's round them all up and and ship them out of town and tell them they be out of town by sundown. It wasn't anything like that. But it was misunderstood, and
I think.
It was purposely mislabeled, and it was purposely used by some people as a virtue signaling point for them and their own political reasons. And I won't name names on this podcast, but I am frankly I was very disheartened by some of that.
Well, I've invited a lot of those people because I still have some of the correspondence, and I've invited a lot of those people on, and I hope they come on because I have this honest question, and this is a totally sincere question. How does letting homeless struggle in frigid temperatures in Great Falls, and especially the ones who can't or won't utilize a rescue mission? I mean, we have one of the most beautiful homeless shelters
I know, it's a good
in a whole state of Montana. I mean, that Cameron Center and oh man, I mean, it is. And I encourage everybody, please go volunteer there. I mean, if you really want to see what human struggle looks like, and you really want to show compassion, go volunteer there.
Yep.
And they are always looking for volunteers. But I always want to know, like, what's the end game? Like, what are we accomplishing by not having alternatives? Because I'll tell you, the alternative is, unfortunately, for a lot of those people, it's inside the jail, and the jail is not a pleasant place.
No,
it's not a country club.
No, and this came up, recently in this recent municipal campaign. One of the candidates for mayor, actually, as one of his campaign points was, I want to be mayor so we can make sure that everyone in Great Falls has a roof over their head. and it was a directly saying that it's the responsibility of the city of Great Falls to make sure everybody has a home to live in, and it is such a misunderstanding of what the responsibility is of the city of Great Falls or the mayor. That is not what the mayor is supposed to do. Thankfully, that candidate did not win because there were some other things that were a display of a complete misunderstanding of what the role of a mayor is, what the role of the city of Great Falls is. It is not the role of the city of Great Falls to make sure everybody has a roof over their head.
Yeah.
That's not the role of the city of Great Falls. That sounds mean, but or it may sound mean to some people. It may sound like, well, you just don't like people or you're not compassionate about people. But that role can be fulfilled by other people and other entities and organizations, and it is fairly well done here in Great Falls.
It is. Right.
But it's certainly not the responsibility of the mayor to do that.
Well, it's two different. There's a political ideology. There's government cares for everything and takes care of everybody, and then there's limited government.
Right.
And I'm going to have that individual on because I really want to hear the whole. I've only heard the sound bites.
Right.
I've only heard the. I moderated one of the mayor debates, right. So I heard the sound bites. I heard that stuff, and it was interesting. But it's like, okay, actually, here's the funny part about me. I'm an idealist, so I completely agree with him. I do think that the government should find a way to put a roof over everybody in their community's head. I agree with that fundamentally. Ideal. I call it idealistic. Right. Okay. But there still needs to be personal responsibility. There still needs to be accountability. It's not just. I'm not. And the other thing too. It's not free. We can't do that. Socialism doesn't work. It fails miserably, and it just teaches people that they're not responsible or accountable. So I'm super curious, and I'm going to invite him on. I really want to hear the whole plan. Is there a whole working plan?
No.
Is there a nonprofit organization out there that has a fundraising mechanism? Is there a jobs corps mechanism that gets jobs? Is there if you take part in this project, your paycheck gets deducted and goes to your rent, so you don't have to worry about it, but the rest is yours, and this is how this whole thing works. And there's a 6-month utility discount if you go into this house, but after that if you start telling me something like that, and you've got a plan, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. And that I think government can play a role in. For example, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Tax abatements. Sometimes people in the community want to restore or build something or recover an area. And to do that, they get a tax abatement so they can put all their money into that property.
Right.
And I think that can be a very good use of government involvement in putting roofs over somebody's heads, for example.
Well, and I agree with you. I don't disagree that it would be nice if everybody had a roof over their head.
I know you don't.
I certainly don't. But my problem is that it's not the mayor. It's not the mayor doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And there one of two things. If a candidate for the mayor of Great Falls says that he's running because he thinks his goal is to put a roof over everybody's head, then he's either just totally misunderstands what the role of the mayor is and the city commission is, or he's not being honest and just trying to use a soundbite to try to get people to vote for him, knowing that he's not going to be able to do that. He can't do that. The mayor doesn't do that. The problem with that, or he really believes that he can do that and that he should do that as the mayor. He or she should do that. Now, the problem with that is then you get in and you start chasing that goal, and when you do that, then you neglect what the mayor is really supposed to do.
Right.
And the city commission is actually supposed to and can do and be effective at doing, which is fixing potholes, making sure we have public safety, which is making sure we have a working sewage system and water system and streets in the city of Great Falls for the people who pay for those things. Your job is not to go out and be the pastor in chief and to go make sure everybody has a roof over their head. The same candidate also was endorsed by a conservation organization who actually ran multiple ads saying that if this guy's elected mayor, he's going to make sure they protect our public lands. It is such a misunderstanding, and it makes me think that they're either being intentionally dishonest, or they just really don't understand what they're doing, or they really believe that junk that the mayor is supposed to make sure that we all have access to public lands. And they're just ignorant.
I saw that, and I actually thought my concern about that ad was, all right, what's the other office that you're looking at?
Yeah, exactly. Where are you trying? What's this? Why are you using the mayor as a stepping stone somewhere else?
That's what it cued in my mind.
Right.
There's a lot you can look into when you look into ads.
Right.
And what people put out there is, well, where are they really going?
Yeah, where are they heading?
Or does their political ad directly? Is there an impact that they directly have in their current role, or the role they're going for? No, it's a good point. It's a really good point. And I think Corey Reeves, who did win the race, I thought he did a good job about kitchen table issues, and that's your strength too.
Right.
Kitchen table issues. What mom and dad sit across from each other, like you and I are sitting across. The kids are at the table. What do they worry about? And they worry about taxes and regulations and code enforcement. And I think both of you do a very good job of that. Both of you talk about things like, okay, how can we do a better job with reducing code enforcement, but yet making sure that we have public safety,
right?
Making sure that if a fire breaks out in one apartment, it doesn't burn the whole building down.
Right. There's reason. Yeah, that's a good balance. And Corey is really good at that. Corey Reeves really did emphasize those things during his campaign. He understood and understands that the job of city government is, number one, public safety, number two, public infrastructure. Those two things. That's what the city can do. One of the most valuable lessons anybody can learn in life, in your own life, is not just what are you going to do, but what are you not going to do. I mean, I have a list of things that I wanted to do. Put the list together of things that you've wanted to do your whole life. You have to, at some point, you have to go, well, I need to narrow that down to maybe 4 or 5 things that I want to do. There are things that you can't do. And it's just as important to understand what those things are as it is to understand the things that you can do. That is really true in city government. We tend to think, some people tend to think, and it's a misconception, and you see it, I'm sure, in your job as well. There are so many misconceptions. People think that the city that the city commission gets a list out of companies that want to come to town and then crosses off the ones they don't want, and then hopefully keeps the Olive Garden and the Red Lobster on the
that
list.
Will never die, will it?
Never die.
That will never die.
Right, never die. So, the city doesn't decide what businesses come here. The city doesn't go out and say, wave the magic Red Lobster wand, and do that.
Have you been to a Red Lobster Olive Garden lately?
No.
Here's the thing I keep
good.
They're not that good.
Right.
They're not that good. We have so much better mom and pop places here in town that are
exactly.
like 100 times better.
But the idea, you get the idea, you understand this.
Yeah.
You have to know what you can't do. But protecting public lands is not, and making sure everybody has a roof over their head is not on the job description of the mayor or the city commission.
It's not.
I'm sorry.
But you know where the rumor of that whole thing comes from?
The rumor of the
Red Lobster Olive Garden. Do you know where it comes from?
No.
Okay, this is a rumor. There's actually a newspaper.
Okay, right.
There's actually a newspaper article that hits on it.
Okay.
So I can't remember the year Donna Stebbins won mayor, but I'm talking like what got to be like 2006 time
Yeah,
frame.
that sounds about right.
I think it's right. And it was Randy Gray.
Right,
was
right.
the
He was the
mayor.
incumbent. That's right.
And there is a Great Falls Tribune, like you pull the paper open back when people actually read the paper,
Right.
and it's 2 whole full pages.
Okay.
And it had to do with the Mackenzie River Pizza
Okay.
and the La Quinta.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Right.
And I guess Randy was part owner.
Right.
in them.
Right.
And it had to do with the fact that Red Lobster and Olive Garden had surveyed that area to put one where Mackenzie River is. And the city denied it because Broadwater Bay parking lot.
Right. Okay. I recall.
There was
I remember now. Yeah.
And you correct me if I'm wrong. It was like an easement issue upon the parking lot.
No, that's exactly right.
And so they said, no, you can't.
Right.
And then Randy, who was part owner in those 2 businesses, all of a sudden they're like good to go. And then the city commission made all these amendments.
Right. The good old boys in full swing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that's the thing. And then that's what a lot of people deem what cost him the election was that huge article. And I'll have you and I should go to the Great Falls History Museum one time and pull that out because it's in there. But it's something to that effect. And again, I am totally saying that some of this is probably a lot of it's rumor. I don't have all the facts, but that was the Olive Garden Red Lobster conspiracy, and it lives today. I still people on social media. When are we gonna get a Red Lobster?
When's that Red Lobster?
I'm like, you guys realize it's like fast food seafood.
Right, it's not very good. And the breadsticks at Olive Garden is probably the best thing about it. The rest of it just kind of sucks. But yeah, but again, it's so knowing what you can and you're able to do is really important.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, just waste your time chasing, little pipe dreams and other things that you just can't do. With the current mayor, Bob Kelly, who I like Bob Kelly.
Right.
And I think he's actually really done a pretty good job in the last couple of years.
I agree.
Of being a leader and of doing what needs to be done. I differ with Bob on a lot of things as well, but I've really learned to like the guy and to appreciate what he's done. But you remember, as I remember, the time that was, he was going to invite all the Syrian refugees. He's just, come on, what are you doing? That's not, that is not on the description of the mayor's office here. Don't be doing that kind of stuff.
And there wasn't even an executive action amongst the city commission to do that.
Right. And that's the other thing that people, the mayor is just another city commissioner. There is a little bit more involved in terms of you go around proclamating this and proclamating that and doing those kinds of things, which are good. And there's a leadership role, and you're the kind of the face of.
And you're the tiebreaker for issues.
Right. And you run the meetings. But
Right.
other than that, you're a commissioner, and your vote doesn't have any more weight than any other commissioner, and you don't have any veto power or any of that. So understanding those things, and I see a lot of misunderstanding in Great Falls, especially online, about what it is the city can and can't do. You probably do the same with the sheriff's office. People just don't have a basic. And I don't blame. I'm not saying that people need to be experts in all this stuff, but because the people are busy doing their own lives and raising their families and doing their own thing, they don't have time to go into all the little nuances. But there's definitely a little gap of knowledge between what the average citizen just thinks that you should do and your office does and the jail does or the city and city commission does and what it actually does and what it actually has the power to do.
No, I agree, and one of the other things I want to touch on with you is I really feel like it's opposite that it used to be. There was a feeling when I first got here that our city commission was kind of anti business, and I think it had more to do with kind of a Great Falls Mafia mentality, and that there's those that owned businesses and had things, and it was like, hey, we don't want to encroach. Where today's business owners, if you go down today and you talk to like Mike Hallahan at the N Bar, or Tom Jacobson, or Brian Kaufman, or the Swingleys, whatever. If you go down and talk to them, they will tell you. Like I was talking to all of them, and I said, "What do you guys think about the Rib and Chop House coming in?" And they're like, "It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It needs to come." And I'm like, "Do you think it'll create less of business?" And they're like, "No, it'll make us have way more business." And so they're not afraid of competition. They're not afraid of having people come down. And that tells me that the people's psyche changed, which then as you work for the people, it tells me that, okay, your psyche can't be that. You can't be the
Right.
good old boy.
Right, exactly.
We don't need this here.
Right.
And that's exciting. And what's exciting about it is the people fueled that.
Yep.
That's really exciting.
Very exciting. I remember, I don't know if you remember the Mountain Mud controversy years ago.
Yes.
So, and that was right in the wheelhouse of what you're talking about
Yeah.
there. We now have food trucks here. I love food trucks.
Why? What? I can't remember. What was the big holdup with the food trucks?
Well, there was a vendor that had some kind of a little kiosk that didn't want the food trucks and had some sway with the city commission and the powers that be. They didn't want the food trucks because they thought it would be competition for their kiosk, for their drink kiosk.
Wow.
And so they had some sway, and they were able to get some of those things done. That's the good old boy. It was the good old boys club in full, in all of its glory. And that stuff is thank God that stuff is just about now disappeared in our town. And we've got young people. You mentioned some of them from the downtown. Those downtown folks, and they do get this. They know that another business down there helps everybody,
Absolutely.
They understand that. We're not trying to keep people out or, keep a competition from being successful, because we understand that a rising tide lifts all boats.
It does.
And that's true for downtown. And, we've got a ways to go in some of these things, but we're getting there. And there's some really good work being done in the, I'm really excited about Brock Cherry, our new Planning and Community Development Director for the city of Great Falls. He's young. He came over from Idaho. He's a younger guy. He's got some really great ideas. I recommend everybody go look at the work session we had this last Tuesday about development review process and what he's doing with that. It's really exciting. And from 3 weeks ago, when he talked about our growth policy coming up, which we'll be focusing on next year, and some of the ideas and things going for. This guy is really good. He's got a young, dynamic team in that planning and community development department. We've changed some of the engineering people. We've got some new, young, fresh thinking people here. It is such the new blood circulating through the circulation system of the great city of Great Falls is exciting. And we are going to see the fruits of that in the coming several years.
I couldn't agree more. I was a downtown officer from 2005 to 2007, and I don't even recognize it. I mean, there were places where I used to be able to get dopers like nonstop, and now that's like those places are like the fanciest, most hip, places that you go into, and it's just crazy how it's changed. And even 10th Avenue South, I heard someone told me the other day that the McDonald's on 10th Avenue South is like the number 2 most busiest McDonald's in the world.
I believe it. I don't care what time you go by there. There's always a line around the block through the drive-through.
It's crazy.
No matter what time of day.
It's absolutely crazy. And I was just thinking about it. I was like, holy cow. I think. So here's my theory. I grew up in Bozeman in the 90s. This is Bozeman in the 90s, but it's progressed way further, and there's way more people. So when it tips over and goes, and then I went to the ribbon cutting of the medical school.
Yep.
And then they're building a big nursing school across the parking lot.
Right, I was there. That's amazing.
And they have all those condos that's all, and they said, you know what they told me? All those condos are full.
Yeah.
They're already sold out.
Yeah.
And so you're looking around and you're like, you've got all these medical students coming in, and now our hospitals are going to be teaching hospitals.
Yep.
And and then here's what's going to happen. As I was talking to their administration, and they said that they might have to start sending people for their, what do you call it? Their practicals, whatever you do in medical school.
Yeah, the internships or whatever they are.
They were talking about they might have to start sending people to Bozeman and other places because they'd fill up here with the amount of medical students they have. Well, one of the things that's going to be fascinating is those people are going to go there, and they're going to come back with ideas and different things. And I think it's going to explode. And then the Sentinel project.
Sentinel is going to be huge.
Is that $88 billion coming into our community?
Yeah, over the next 10 years, approximately. And I don't think people have really gotten their heads around what's going to happen with the Sentinel project here.
I don't think they have either.
And it was one of the, the safety levy and the bond were we could probably do another podcast about that at some point in time, but that was one of the Sentinel project and what that's going to create here. And you probably, Jesse, know more about this than most people do. The challenges you're going to face because of this coming into our area here. I heard, and I don't know which county it was, but I was talking to one of the local officers here. One of the sheriff's department, and I believe it's Lewis and Clark. I'm sorry, Lewistown. What county is that?
Fergus.
Yeah, Fergus. They had asked for, in anticipation of this Sentinel project coming, they thought that they needed to get 24 more new deputies in Fergus County.
Yeah.
For the Fergus County Sheriff's Department in order to handle it. Of course, they're not going to get that, because there's just they don't have the resources there.
Well, the problem is our tax structure is totally messed up here.
Don't get me started.
And the problem is what we need to do, and it'll never happen. They'll just add another tax. You don't want another tax, but we need a sales tax. But we have to get rid of a property tax or an income tax to make that happen.
Right.
And the problem is the state legislature doesn't know how to deal with that 2-year biennium where they can't predict costs.
Right.
So they won't do it. And somebody has to have the courage to do that, because if you were to have a sales tax, just like they saw in North Dakota with the oil boom,
right? The Bakken field,
Williston, what is it? I said it wrong. You know what I'm talking about. That little town in North Dakota over the border. I just said it wrong.
The Bakken field over there.
What is it? Williston. Thank you. I said Williston. I mean, they boomed.
Right.
They boomed there, but they were able to raise the size of their local police department and their sheriff's offices, pay people. They ended up having to pay people, I was told, close to 6 figures so they didn't lose them to the oil fields.
Right.
But that helped their economy. That because they had a sales tax and everyone was spending their money, they were able to do that. We're not going to have that ability to adjust on the fly. So what will happen is we have to rely on these property taxes that are greatly delayed, and then the whole. You guys deal with this too, the percentage rates of inflation.
It's just unbelievable.
All those little calculations that are going to put us so far behind.
Yeah, we're already behind. So
oh, no, we are. Yeah. But that's going to make it even
worse. It's going to be worse. And I hope, and I'm going to make sure my voice is heard on this. The legislature needs to reform our tax system in Montana, period. Yeah. We can't go on any longer depending on the property tax to fund everything. Yeah. And so that's why this safety bond levy, one of the reasons, there are a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons it failed so badly is because people can't afford it. They cannot afford to have their house used as a piggy bank any longer. And so I don't see any way out of it. I've heard sales tax or some other consumption tax, a local option tax is another thing. But the legislature better get on the stick. And we need to be talking to our local legislative delegation here. And I could name some of the ones that I think are going to, and they're Republicans, because they're all Republicans now from Cascade County, that need to, get off of their ideological, hobby horse and start thinking about how we're going to do this, because we can no longer do it. We can't do it anymore.
Well,
It's over.
I think the answer, and this is just me, this is just Jesse Slaughter's opinion. This is this comes from nothing but my own ramblings. I think the answer is we need to get rid of income tax.
Yeah.
And the reason you get rid of income tax is twofold. Is number one, you trade the income tax for the sales tax. You make all these out-of-staters who are coming here to Montana because they saw a TV show Yellowstone and they love it and they want to. I mean, because that is, I call it the
Right,
Yellowstone.
I
call
know.
it the Yellowstone effect. You know, so they want to come here and they want to do. Okay, cool. You help us pay all these taxes. You know, you all come from big states with huge taxes anyway, and make it so if you invest here, yeah, you got property taxes. That's the tax you got, but your income doesn't get taxed. And look at the successes that like Florida's had, the successes Texas has had with these models. And I
Right.
think there's some other Gulf Coast states that do the no income tax. I think Arizona is the same. But they bring in people who worked really hard, they retired or have a retirement. I think the legislature passed a bill where veterans, I think it's retired veterans, don't have to pay income tax in Montana. So they're already starting down that road. But
Right.
they need to get more aggressive, and so that if you work in Montana and you invest in Montana, you get to keep your pay.
Right.
You know,
Yep. And yeah, we can't, and I agree with that. No income tax, but if we're going to do a sales tax or some other kind of a consumption tax, flat tax, there are lots of ideas out there. But the goal has to be to, Proposition 13 in California years and years ago was, if you bought a house at $60,000, that's the value of it 20 years from now.
yeah, that's the tax.
That's
the
the
tax.
tax on it. So we need to have some ideas like that. We could reduce the rates that the Department of Revenue multiplies your property value by. We could do some cap. There's all kinds of things we can do. I'm not qualified to decide how Montana needs to reform their tax, but they need to do it. Otherwise, it's just it's gonna be a nightmare if we don't do something.
Well, Republicans just don't want to make government bigger. That's
No, I get
that's been
that.
my experience, and they don't want to take more from people. But what they need to start thinking about are like you said, what are the alternatives?
Right.
Can we, and maybe it's like you said, capping your property taxes,
Right.
doing something creative there. The nice thing about a sales tax versus an income tax is if you save your money, you're not getting taxed on it.
Right.
If you're a saver, if you're planning for the future, you're not getting taxed on that money, from the state. So you're not getting taxed on that money, where it's only a consumption tax. Like if you go out and spend money, then you get taxed.
Right.
And so it's kind of in some ways it can be a fairer tax because
Right.
there's ways that, okay, if I just hold on to my money, I'm not getting taxed on it.
Right. There has to be a tax. And there are people there's a libertarian contingent here, even in Great Falls, that just believe, no taxes. We shouldn't have to pay taxes. And they think that's constitutional for some reason, and they haven't read the Constitution, because it's very clear that the Constitution gives the Article 1 powers of the legislature the power to tax. And that template goes all the way down. That's why we follow the constitutional model of a legislature having the power to tax people, as long as it's there are stipulations in it. But you have to have a tax, because you're not going to, Jesse, you and I are not going to go out and put a street or a sewage system out here on our own dime. There has to be a common, there has to be a shared interest and a common way to do the things that we need, like public safety, like public infrastructure. Those things we have to all pitch in for. So there has to be a way to do that, and that's a tax system. But the property tax system that we have in Montana is antiquated. It doesn't work anymore, and it's going to get worse as property values go up, which they will, and which we've already seen.
There's no more dirt in Montana left.
No.
There isn't. I mean, it's all getting bought up, and it just keeps going up and up and up and up.
And I love the expression on the Yellowstone, the people that about mid-February, when they realize here in Great Falls about mid-February, that's when they realize that they're not living on the set of Yellowstone. They're living on the surface of Pluto.
Yes, they are. And it's cold.
Yeah.
Let's dive into public safety, but let's
All right.
take a quick break. Sure. Right back. Your health journey is as unique as you are. The Peak Great Falls has everything you need for your fitness journey. They are your partner in wellness with a top-notch facility, an expert staff, and a very welcoming vibe. Locally owned, community driven. Join them today. Everybody needs a good insurance plan. Whether it's for home or auto insurance, check out Heinbaugh Agency. Eric Heinbaugh is a local agent focused only on customer service, not sales. The Double Barrel Cafe is all about you, the amazing people of Cascade County. With every purchase you make, they give back to our community. Every bite and sip fuels their mission. Let's make a positive change, one cup and one bite at a time, because the Double Barrel is not just a cafe, they're building a better community. If you haven't noticed lately, Cascade County is booming, and the choice for all your construction needs is Builders First Source. They even have an automated home builders solution for all of your construction needs. Go to 826 Northwest Bypass in Great Falls and check them out today. Are you looking to replace those floors in your home? Or maybe you're doing new construction? The place I trust is Contract Flooring Carpet One. This is a locally owned and operated business here in Great Falls, and they are committed to serving you and giving you the very best prices and the very best product and service. Go see Contract Flooring Carpet One today. If you love a farm-to-table experience as much as I do, then you have to go to the Roadhouse Diner. The local McCafferty Ranch beef served on every burger. Try my personal favorite, Death by Bacon, today. When deciding who I would trust for the technology component of this podcast, the choice was simple: Information Systems of Montana. Whether purchasing products for business or when I had them build me a new MacBook to catch child predators, they delivered, creating a solution for my exact needs. Contact Information Systems of Montana today. If you're passionate about firearms and the Second Amendment like I am, one of the best places in all of Montana to go is Mitchell Supply. Jim and Tammy Mitchell have been running this gun store for decades. They're major supporters of the Second Amendment, and they're major supporters of our community. And obviously, they're supporters of this podcast. For all your firearms needs, go check out Mitchell Supply today. All right, Rick, and we're back. And
All right, good.
We've had a good conversation.
Yes, great. It's been awesome, man. Thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
I love what you're doing here.
I want to, we touched on public safety because we talked about the crime task force and stuff like that. We touched on the levy, but you're pretty passionate about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of your thing, isn't it?
It is kind of my thing. My general philosophy on this is that Great Falls will never get to where it wants to go if we don't have a really, really good public safety infrastructure and personnel. Nobody wants to. You just look at what's happened. People are leaving places like the West Coast big cities, East Coast big cities. We've seen over the last year and a half people fleeing crime-ridden, drug-infested, slime pits, basically. And they want to get out of that. Why would they come to a place, or why would anybody invest money in a place that is like the place they're running from or they're trying to get away from? So Great Falls will never be what it has the potential to be unless we're willing to do what it takes to have a world-class public safety system. And when I talk public safety, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about law enforcement, courts, and our fire department here. And we are way behind right now. And people, but now I get it. I'm not, the campaign is over, and the all of the candidates that ran for municipal offices were saying pretty much the same thing I'm saying now. It's all over. The people have spoken. They rejected it. They rejected the public safety levy and the bond issue. That doesn't mean that they rejected law enforcement or that they rejected the fire department or our court system. It simply means that it was too much at this time to ask, and I get that.
Do you think there's an old saying out there that a community will only be policed as much as it will allow? So do you think this was a issue of that the citizens didn't want that much enforcement, or do you think it was an issue that they welcomed the enforcement, it was just purely money?
I think it was purely money. I think people looked at it and went, I can't afford it.
Okay.
I just can't afford what you're asking. I've heard numerous people that really oppose the levy and the bond that said, I would vote for, a lower ask, or in some cases, a much lower ask. And so, I do think it was the money. I think people recognize that we have issues here that we need to address with public safety. I think they recognize that. They just, and I'll say right now, I think it was a mistake to ask for as much as that we asked for on the bond and the levy. I believe that was a mistake. And I'm one voice. At the beginning, when we started the conversation, I was inclined to go, let's take this a little bit, let's take this one component at a time instead of everything together. But I saw there was no will to do that for several reasons. But now, after the first year, when the new city commission is seated and we go into our strategic planning session, we're going to have to deal with this, and we're going to have to find, hopefully with the help of the community and more input. Unfortunately, people put, they wait till a month before an election or an issue comes to a head before they really start telling you all of their brilliant ideas.
Right.
And there are some brilliant ideas.
No, there is.
There's no doubt the community, I believe the best ideas trickle up, but so we'll see.
So one of the things that I was concerned about with the levy was, and I said this at the crime task force meeting, was if the city grows too fast, the county can't deal with the growth. And we're the city's infrastructure. We're your courts, we're your jail, we're your felony, where all your felonies go through the judicial system. Pretty soon, we're gonna start pretrial services, so that we're gonna be your pretrial services.
Right.
And so one of my big concerns was, oh my gosh, the city's going to outgrow us. And what happened to us was when we went for our levy, we purposely jumped way out ahead because we knew we had a smaller ask, but we knew if we didn't get to the table first, we weren't going to get anything.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And we were so far behind the city. And we weren't just behind in infrastructure, in pay, we were so far behind. So we had to build infrastructure and pay. Well, initially, we were going to ask for 20 mils. And I purposely kind of leaked that out there a little bit. And I listened to the pushback. And what I found was people were very willing to do it.
Right.
But they were a little concerned about the ask.
Yep.
So Josh Racky and I sat down, we sharpened our pencil, and we went down to 14. And we were able to be successful. But all we were really trying to do is keep the people we have. Because that's one of the issues that I heard about the city's mill levy was if they can't fill the ranks that they currently have, how are they going to add more?
Right.
And we were up against that same issue. We were totally up against that same issue. So I thought, okay, well, let's go for pay and let's see if we can sustain a workforce for 5-6 years where we can hold our manning. And I looked at that because I thought that would be really, really important. Because there's a big difference between the way the world looks when you're fully staffed versus when you're understaffed.
Right.
There's a big difference. So we kind of went with that strategy. But that was my concern. That was really my only concern. I came from the Great Falls Police Department,
Right.
so I had no other issues other than that. My concern was that if that levy was to pass, obviously fire was completely separate.
Yeah.
And my hunch is, like, if it was just the bond, I think the bond would have passed.
Yep.
I think the bond on its own would have passed easy. I think they understood they needed more fire stations. But
you got to man those fire stations, though.
Well, I think one of the strategies they could have used, and this is just hindsight being 2020, only because I saw the votes, right?
Yep.
Was it's going to take 3 or 4 years to build them all out. And then we'll come back and ask for the manning.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that's right. Yep. And I think we need to approach that maybe in that way. I don't know. We'll see. I'm one voice, but I do know this: just because the levy didn't pass and the bond issue didn't pass, doesn't mean that the problem is now gone.
No.
And I think some people think that. I think people want to believe that, well, we didn't vote for it, so the problem's gone now.
Right.
But the problem is not gone. The issues that we have with public safety, personnel, infrastructure are still there.
Right.
Now, we need to address it. So we'll see. We can either address it a little bit at a time, or we can kick the can down the road and do nothing.
Right.
And that might be what people want us to do. Just the citizens may want to go, don't do anything right now. Let's just wait and see.
Well, I don't think what's happening in D.C. with our federal government helped you at all.
No, it didn't.
I think it crushed you.
Yep.
And I don't think the war in Ukraine and now possibly a war in the Middle East, I don't think those things helped at all, because it just made people feel
Yep.
insecure, I think.
Yep.
And kind of like, I'm going to hold on to my own.
Yep,
'cause
exactly.
The world right now is not really predictable,
Right.
and that's unfortunate.
That's exactly right. And I think that's a spot on analysis of what's going on. We are in uncertain times, and people are a little nervous and a little scared right now. And we're an older community, that's less and less so as we go forward, but there's still a lot of older folks in Great Falls that, they don't know how they live on a fixed income, and they don't know how they're going to afford,
Right.
what this levy ask was, which was.
I know we're an older community because we have the highest corner rate calls in the state of Montana. Yeah, we do. And it's not from, like Bozeman has a super high one, but theirs are like recreational deaths.
Okay.
Ours are naturals,
Yeah.
which tells you you're the oldest community.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's changing, though.
It is changing,
it's
and actually, when you look at the latest demographics things I saw, Helena has an older, median age than Great Falls does. Great Falls is somewhere in the 48 or so, 47 or 48. It's the median age
Right.
here. You would think it would be higher, but it
No,
isn't.
no. You can see it changing.
Yeah,
You can see it changing rapidly.
it is changing, and
Yeah.
it will continue to change. A lot of those nursing students and medical school students, coming into town, that's going to, over the years, it's going to, over the coming 3 or 4 years, we're going to see huge changes in Great Falls.
So, what do you think is this funding of public safety the number one issue facing the city?
I think, yes, I do think that. I think number one is going to be public safety, and then number two is going to be our growth plan next year. And the reason I can't say taxes, which I believe is the state's biggest issue, is because nothing the city can do about it.
Right.
Go back to what you do what you can do something about.
Absolutely.
We can't do anything about what the state decides to do on taxes, but I really hope that folks like you that are doing this will focus on that in this podcast with our state legislators. Our Cascade County legislative delegation needs to come out with somebody. Tell me what you're going to do, because we can't go on like this. And so, yeah, public safety number one, our growth policy plan number two, and then. We do a pretty good job on maintaining infrastructure, streets and water and all that. We do a pretty good job on that. But those two things, starting next year, will be, again, top of my list of priorities. And from what I'm hearing from people, it's theirs as well. And hopefully the state can address our tax issues.
Well, government's true role, I mean, if you're going to break down everything, their number one priority should be protecting its citizens.
Yep, that's number one.
Number one priority over everything else.
That's it.
We talk about, and I'm going to have Tony Rosales, the head of the Libertarian Party, on here for sure. We've been talking, and that the libertarian mentality of no taxes. Okay, it only works. There is a recipe for that.
No,
but you got to remember, it's been since the early 1900s since we haven't had an income tax.
Right.
And the problem, in my opinion, is that means a community truly has to start taking care of their neighbors. I mean, when I mean taking care, though, I mean literally taking care of them.
Right.
And, you're creating co-ops to do roads, and I go up to the Dearborn a lot for their annual meeting and stuff, and they have co-ops to take care of their roads. Yeah. But oh my gosh, do they fight about it?
Yeah.
I think it's so. But I mean, but where I'm getting at with this whole thing is like our technology and our infrastructure and people's expectation is we're going to pay these taxes for this stuff. And the other thing too, quite frankly, people aren't as handy or have the ingenuity that they used to. So they will say this, I'd rather just pay the taxes.
No, well, yeah.
And so the whole argument of well, there shouldn't be a tax. It's like, well, okay, but you have to get the majority of the people to agree with that. And that's not going to happen.
Right. That's not going to happen. Plus the Constitution of the United States explicitly states that Congress has the right to tax.
Oh, absolutely. I was just coming at it from an ideological standpoint of,
so,
I get why people think that way.
Yeah.
But it's
I don't know how you do it. And believe me, I'm as conservative as they come when it comes to, fiscal and constitutional issues. Second Amendment especially, as you know, and but on the taxation issue, I don't know how, I am against taxes for studies on the mating habits of rabbits,
in Gibson Park.
Gibson Park. I'm against that. I think taxes should be for public safety, public infrastructure. That's what it should be for. Right. Anything above that and beyond that, in my opinion, is very debatable on whether it should be done at all.
I think it was the year you won, the first year you won city commissioner. I'm almost positive it was. Do you remember when it was the bond for the parks passed?
It's before I was on the city commission.
Was it?
But it was one of the issues that I railed on.
Oh, it was. It was when I ran the first time in 2018. It was.
Yes. Yep.
And if you remember, Tammy Lacey was a school superintendent, and they had a levy. They were trying to push a big school levy at the time, and the levy failed, and the parks passed.
Right.
And I remember just going, "Wow!" That totally surprised. I mean, hey, it's the will of the people. I mean, like, hey, cool, we have awesome parks.
Right.
Good. I mean, I'm not. Please don't think that I say that I'm judging that or
no,
bashing
I get that. No, I get it.
Because there is a tourism and a attractiveness to that whole thing. But I'll never forget. I was just stunned, and it made me not be able to figure out our community for a minute.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I was like, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I know.
But when they announced that they were going to do, I think it was a bond, wasn't it, or was it a levy?
For the park district, it was an assessment on. It was an additive. It was to make the whole city a special assessment district.
Okay.
So that everybody would be assessed a little extra on their city taxes to pay for parks.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what it was.
And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm like,
it's a levy. Yeah,
this is a levy. Thank you. It's never going to pass.
Right.
And then it passed.
It passed.
And I was like, holy cow. I mean, it was just one of the most unpredictable things I had ever seen.
Well, and a lot of that, and the issue I had with it is I don't think it was done honestly by the city. And I just don't think it was done honestly.
By the way, it was by the verbiage and the
verbiage and some of the tactics that were used. I just don't think it was done honestly and done in the right way.
We made sure when we did ours, and you guys I saw did the same thing. When you checked the boxes, it said for levy, against levy.
Right.
So you didn't have to read
that.
Because you've ever read them, and you ever read the ones, and they're like, okay, if you say no, you're actually voting for it.
Right, exactly.
And you're like, what the heck?
I'm so confused. Yeah, and but it's pretty clear. On yours and on ours, it was very clear.
The marijuana tax levies were confusing.
They were really confusing.
Yeah, I think it was. If you voted no, it was yes. If you voted yes, it was no.
That's
and you're
exactly right.
How do you, I mean, and I don't like that stuff either. That's just, that's not fair.
Right.
That's not right.
It's not right. But the other side of that is the voter has the obligation to really educate themselves as best they can. Most don't do it very well, I think.
It's hard
on those issues.
It's hard though.
It is hard.
It's one of the reasons. I mean, I know that, certain groups of people like mail order ballots. Certain groups of people like to go vote in person. I like a mail order ballot.
Right.
Because I lay mine out on the table. I research the issue while I'm laying,
Right.
Because I can't pay attention. Even though I'm involved in politics, I can't pay attention to all this. There's always something on there I don't know.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
And so sometimes it takes me 2 weeks to fill out my ballot because,
It's one of the reasons that we didn't want the library levy and the safety levy on the same ballot.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why, is we thought that each of those should have their own ballot.
Yeah.
And their own ballot language. instead of having, and somebody, well, what do you think? We're stupid. We can't figure out, two things. No, I don't think that. But I'm like you. I go, I want a simple, clear thing here to vote for. And when you get so many things involved in it, it becomes.
See, I think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I think it was. A lot of the feedback I've got was once the library levy passed, I was done with levies.
Yeah.
And it partly is because we went first. And I think if you guys could have got it early, or you could have beat them to the punch somehow and got in on some special earlier election, I don't, however it works. I think you guys stood a better chance in that. So it was challenging. So Second Amendment.
Yeah.
You brought it up.
Yeah.
So I was one of the interesting things that I've seen in our world lately that just has blown my mind. Kind of want to get your thought on it. Have you seen what's happening? And I didn't know this. I'm ignorant to this. I thought Israel had a Second Amendment.
No, they have some of the most liberal gun laws in the world.
And I did not know that.
Yeah.
And so I saw after Hamas attacked, they started giving people guns. And they did the same thing in Ukraine.
Right.
And so I had to laugh when I saw that, because I said, so this is how people who advocate for gun control. So we just have to wait till we get invaded,
right.
then we get AR-15s, and they start doling them out,
Right.
and then when it's over, we've lost our trust,
Right.
and we're no longer the government, and they come take them away from us.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've always, the argument for the Second Amendment, as you know, it has nothing to. People think, well, I want your Second Amendment's about go out and plunking varmints. That's really not. We know that. I mean, that's elementary. That's elementary understanding of the Second Amendment. It's not about hunting. The Second Amendment is about your God-given right, not your government-granted right, your God-given right or natural right to keep and bear arms to protect yourself and your family. And so then the next argument comes out is that, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you think there's a tyrant? You're going to go up against the whole United States government. They've got an army. They've got. But Joe Biden said, "What are you going to fight an F-15?" And again, it's another ridiculous argument.
Yeah, my answer to that.
You're not up to the mic.
What, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
No, can't hear you at all.
Well, that's weird.
I can hear him.
It's just like you're yelling.
You couldn't hear me.
Oh, there you go.
They
That's
can
better.
hear me.
I can.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. My answer to that is tell that to the Viet Cong and the Taliban. See what they have to say about it.
Plus, that's exactly right. Plus, it's not just about if the government wants to if you want to overthrow the government, you can't win because they got an army. It's about your God-given right to protect yourself, because we don't know what's going to happen. There could be a natural disaster. There could be an EMP. There could be a whole host of things. You don't have to go to the citizens trying to overthrow the United States government, and that's why we have to have a right to keep and bear arms. That's one possibility, but there are other possibilities.
We'll look at Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
I mean, the citizens turned on each other because there was a crisis, so they started doing home invasions, going in homes.
Right.
Well, those people, if they were armed, they had a right to protect themselves. Talk to me about when the legislature passed that constitutional carry and no guns in government buildings. As an elected official who is going in and out of government buildings, have you seen any major negative safety issues or side effects to that?
No, I haven't. I understand the thinking behind it, though. We do occasionally get people coming into the city commission meeting that, you may know who I'm talking about specifically, was just there the other night. And I had someone tell me, man, I would be worried about that guy coming in with a gun.
Yeah. But does the sign stop him?
Yeah, they read the sign and turn their gun right in. No, it's no. So I haven't seen any issues, but I have had people tell me I may not go to a city commission meeting if I know that guy's going to be there, because I don't know if what he's going to do, or that gal is going to be there, because I don't know what they're going to do, or if they may have a gun and start popping off. Just
my frustration with the whole gun free zone issue. and is if you're going to do metal detectors and you're going to have people there with security, and you know that everybody that walked through that door got the same check you got, and they're patted down and they go in there, then I think it's good to go.
Right.
My problem is creating a rule that they don't enforce and they don't check. There's no accountability to
Yeah.
the rule
No, I get that. Yeah.
until the worst thing happens.
Right. Until the worst thing happens. Yeah.
You know, and so that's where I get, you know, really frustrated. Like for example, our schools. You know, that is the number one example of frustration I have with it is, well, we don't want anybody armed in those schools.
Yeah.
That's where kids are. We don't want them around it, but we're not going to put metal detectors and staff at the doors to ensure that everybody that goes in there doesn't have one.
Right.
You know, and so it's just I mean, like I don't worry. Like when I go on an airplane, I don't worry. I'm not like paranoid to be on an airplane because I can't have a gun.
Right.
I'm not paranoid. I mean, I'm usually paranoid the pilot might crash the plane.
Especially when you look at him, he looks like he's about 15 years old. You know.
Oh yeah. Or I'm paranoid, you know, that I'm not going to get 2 bags of peanuts.
Right.
Those are the things I worry about. But that's the frustration I get with those arguments. Is It's just extremely frustrating because we're not really doing anything to prevent the issue. We're just saying you can't.
Right. No, I get it.
Only the people that follow the rules.
Right. No, I get it. It's
yeah.
That's the basic issue with Second Amendment is,
Yeah.
you know, the old argument that, you know, that, what is it? The gun, you know, the guns. If you take away everybody's guns, nobody will have guns except the bad guys. Something like that.
I think the funny one is if you outlaw guns, only outlaws.
Yeah, right.
will
That's
have
the one I
right?
was thinking of right there. So,
Yeah.
but you're right. You know, a lot of these things aren't Democrat or Republican. So like I said the other night at one of the last forums we had, you know, a pothole is not a Democrat pothole or a Republican pothole or a gay pothole or a black, you know, pothole or a, you know, straight pothole or a Muslim pothole or a Christian pothole. A pothole is a pothole that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And most of what we do at the city commission level is 100% non-political. It's
Right.
100% doesn't have anything to do with any of that stuff. And so, you know, that makes my position, my job as city commissioner, a lot easier. When it does come up, there are some occasionally that will come up that are political, and that may kind of stray into the non-pothole category. And in those cases, you know, you let your worldview sort of inform your decision on that or your opinion on that. And everybody has a different worldview, and or a lot of people. There are a lot of variances in worldviews. My worldview informs me on those kind of issues, but my worldview doesn't have anything to do with that damn pothole needs to be fixed down there. So let's go fix it. It's not Democrat. It's not Republican. You know. So
that's a huge point. You know, there's only 2 times that I think as sheriff that I've really had to be political, and I mean I didn't really want to be, but COVID.
Yep.
I mean, you didn't have a choice.
No,
you were
I
either
know.
you were either for tyranny or for freedom, and
Yep.
you had and when I say that, I'm not saying that there was a bunch of tyrannical people. So I don't mean to say that. But the byproduct of the government's policies created tyranny,
Yeah. No, it did.
and you had to fight for
Yep.
freedom.
You
If
were good at that. You
if
were really good.
Well, you had to.
Yep.
You know, and then then the other one was a lot of the stuff that involves the federal government.
Right.
You know, and you're not really making stands on these things as local government like me and you because you want to be political. What you're doing is you're looking out for what you said, the people
Right.
who are your boss, and you're saying, whoa, 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 you're coming too fast on them.
Right.
Slow down. You don't get to tell them what to do. They tell us what to do.
Right.
Government's supposed to move slow.
Purposely. Yep.
It is.
Yep.
And part of the reason it moves slow is so we can hear them.
Yep.
If it's moving fast, we're not listening.
Right. No, that's a good point. Very good point.
And so I think that's critical, and you're very, very good at that.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
I hear you all the time in city commission meetings, slowing it down,
Yeah.
asking questions. You're
Yep.
not afraid to be the lone dissent vote.
Yeah.
which I always appreciate.
Yeah, you don't want to just rubber stamp everything. That's
No, you can't.
You can't do it.
You can't.
No.
And sometimes you have to dissent out of principle because you don't agree with the principle.
You were good on COVID. I appreciated your stance on
thank you.
COVID.
I thought you were great too.
Yeah, tried to be.
Yeah.
You wanted to when it first hit and it was so bad. Your first instinct is to go, let's defer to the experts on this.
Absolutely.
And then you learned that a lot of the experts were just bullshit. And some of it was just bullshit.
I don't disagree with you. What I was going to say though is the sense of okay, here's I agreed with everything. Like so city commission meetings went to Zoom, county commission meetings went to Zoom. That's great.
Right.
That's government adapting so that you can still take part in your government, but yet everyone's safe. So you can't say, well, I would have gone to the city commission meeting, but I'm going to get sick, so I'm not going to go. Well, here's a Zoom option.
Right.
But here's where they tipped over the edge and crossed the line and lost me. When they started telling people, you don't get to make a living anymore.
Right.
You're done. And here's the funny part. If you're Walmart, you go.
Right.
We can't shut you down. You're essential.
Right.
If you're the N bar,
right.
If you're the Driftwood bar, you're closed.
Right.
Well, people don't understand. The people that own that's their living. They don't get a paycheck from Walmart.
Right.
They get a paycheck from themselves because they own their own business. And that's when I utterly lost my mind.
Right.
No,
and you were good on that. That was good.
Didn't do any good, but
well, no, and for me, it was when they started saying you can't come to a city commission meeting unless you have a mask on. At first, I said, okay, again, let's defer to the experts and the science people and the health officials on all of this. But then it just kept going. I mean, it's like even after people went, no, the masks don't do anything. Basically, after a certain point, they just kept doing it. They just kept saying, you can't come into your building that you own for a public meeting unless you wear a mask. And I finally just said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I appreciated that when you did that too. That was empowering.
Well, I mean, this common sense. You take it up to a point, and then after it reaches a point where it was like, we can make them wear masks. We can make them do this. We can make everybody do this or that.
So
bullshit.
I was on the governor's COVID-19 task force. I got selected to be on that. Not a lot of people know this, but there was one meeting.
One meeting.
And I think I ranted for most of it about how unconstitutional this was. And it was hilarious because I get an alert. I had I had my phone set on some alert. It was the governor's office Facebook page for the COVID updates, right? Because remember how they'd always get on, it was Bullock, then it was Gianforte.
Yep.
So I don't know, it's like a day later and I get an alert that says Governor Gianforte is going to talk about the COVID task force. I'm like, oh, cool. He's going to talk about our first meeting. And he gets up there and he's like, effective today, the mask mandate is over. And he starts just, the curfews are over, the business is going to be, and I'm like sitting there going, oh, so I guess we're not going to have another meeting.
No more meetings.
And I admired him for that.
Me too.
A lot of people in government would have sat still forever trying to figure out how to make a decision. He just wanted to hear some input, get an idea, and he's like, okay, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah.
And off we went. And
he was good. No, he was good during
he was
great.
No, and it was remember it was this. Remember, once we get a vaccine, this is all over. And then we get the vaccine, and then it's like,
Well, no, it was at first it was 2 weeks to stem the tide or whatever the hell the phrase was at the time, and then here we are a year and a half later, people wearing 18 masks and still you can't go anywhere and
driving in their car alone, with the mask on. I mean, it's just. But it started off with just 2 weeks to stem the tide, or what I forget what they called it. And it just got to the point. Bend the curve or something. I don't remember.
Right. Bend the curve.
One of the funniest things I still see on TV, and they stopped these news clips. Ben and I used to always joke about these, was when Trump was in office, and he's like, he's got Operation Warp Speed to a vaccine, right?
Yeah.
And Biden and Kamala Harris, and they're like, I will not take
I'm
that
not
virus.
taking
I
that.
do not trust it.
Right.
It's not properly researched.
Right.
It's terrible.
Right.
And you're like, okay. And then they get in office, and whoop,
It's like
it's like, okay, we're going for this, and you better get the jab, and you can't get on a plane without getting the jab, and you can't travel.
It became obvious after a while that it was just a power.
it's just very
power going to your
obvious.
head. Oh, this is an opportunity for me to do something.
Right. It's
And
just
it's like you don't have any idea what you're doing.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was. I will say this. I was talking to someone the other day. I was in court today for a trial, and it was a 2019 trial. So this trial's been delayed because of COVID.
Right in the middle, yeah.
And I was like, it feels like that was 10 years ago.
Right, I know it does. It really does. It just seems like a bad
Maybe 15
dream.
years. Yeah.
Or some horrible experience from way in the past.
Well,
it's awful.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it ruined our country.
Yep.
I mean, I think we can get it back. I'm an optimist, so I
am
believe
too.
we can. But in a lot of ways, it ruined our country.
No, and there's a lot of people that do not like. They enjoyed the. It's like Ben said. They enjoyed the power.
Right.
They enjoyed the control they had over people, and they especially enjoyed the virtue signaling with the face mask with the Ukraine flag on it, or a Black Lives Matter face mask. They really loved that way to virtue signal that they could take a picture of themselves and put it on their thing about how morally superior and wonderful they are because they've got a mask with Black Lives Matter on it.
Right.
And I saw lots of those. I mean, you would think it would be a parody on something you would see on Saturday Night Live or something, but it was real.
Yeah.
People really doing that, and they really loved that opportunity.
Yeah, they did. And when you're talking about the virtue signaling, that's the thing that gets on my nerves more than anything else.
Yeah.
When you can tell it's not genuine.
Right.
It's not a genuine concern. It's something I want to look like I'm
Right.
more morally superior about.
Right.
It just gets on my nerves, man.
I remember when someone had called me and said, "Hey, I have a concealed weapon permit. Can I carry my gun while I'm wearing a mask?" And at first I almost just emailed him right back and was like, "Yeah, of course, no problem." And then I got to thinking, I'm like, why are they asking this question? So then I asked, "Why are you asking?" And they sent me a Washington Code Annotated, State of Washington, which says, it makes sense when you think about it, but while carrying your gun concealed, you cannot in any way impair
Conceal your face.
Right. I.e., you're carrying a gun concealed, you're going to go do an armed robbery.
Right.
And I went, holy cow. So I had to go do a bunch of research.
Right.
We don't have a law like that on the books. So I did a Facebook video about it, on the range, showing people, you can carry your gun and wear your mask.
Awesome.
But it was one of those things though, like all these questions. And the crazy part was the total czar authority the health officer had.
Yep.
I mean, there was even a code that if you didn't do what they said, you were guilty. And it didn't say it was alleged you were guilty of a misdemeanor and you can be removed from office.
Right.
And I was just like, and I'll never forget, I worked with Steve Fitzpatrick right after that. And we got that out.
Yeah.
Effective on signing, and that was done.
Right. They had to change that countywide here too because she was pretty good, and I forget what her name was. That was
Oh gosh,
shortly after she resigned. She went and moved on to do something.
Was it Trish?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I think she was
pretty good.
I think she was a good intended, good person. I really do.
Yeah, I do
It's
too.
just she's the health board,
Right.
But the scariest thing ever was when they would mute people on government boards to silence their First Amendment. That was scary.
Yeah.
When you had the whole Zoom thing in effect.
Oh yeah, right.
You just go blip.
Bloop. Yeah.
And I remember going, that's not good.
That's not.
That's
good,
bad.
man.
Yeah.
Bad
So it was
news.
crazy news. But anyway, congratulations.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm happy for you, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And we need to do a better job of working so city and county works closer together. And I promise you that I'll work.
Yeah,
really
we absolutely need to do that. Just not only between you and local law enforcement, but especially at the commission level, we've had it's not been very good. And I'm not blaming anybody specifically, but the city and county need to work better together. I couldn't agree more.
I actually have this really good feeling that this is going to change.
Yeah.
I really do. and I think we have the right people are in place, and but we're going to do a really good job on that, and start working for the people, not work for our own interests.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's important. Yeah, God bless you, man.
God bless you, Jesse. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks.
Thank you. You guys
Thanks for
are
coming on.
awesome. Thank you for doing this. This is really
Absolutely.
great. All right.
Awesome. Take care. Hey, everybody. Jesse Slaughter with the Pursuit Podcast. And we really appreciate the amazing support already that this channel has received. Our social media is blowing up. Everywhere we look, people are liking and clicking and commenting. But what we really need you to do is subscribe to our Facebook page and follow us on Spotify. That's what drives this channel. That's what's going to keep this channel going forever. Tim and Ben are behind the scenes doing tireless editing, working on this to make this come out the way it does, this high quality product that it is. So please go in there, click subscribe, click follow, and make sure that this channel sticks around for a long time, because we truly believe it's doing a lot of great things for our community. But there's many, many other people out there who we need to support. So follow and subscribe today. Thank you.